Greetings, my Israelite brothers and sisters, heirs, joint heirs, adopted, grafted, now. It's a great day in South Florida. I don't know what's quite wrong with my screen other than it's a lot of sun coming in. I'll see if I can block it, but I have my stand repositioned because I am in a different vehicle. So I wanted to talk about Feast of Trumpets coming up on September the 30th. I'm going to see if I can reposition my camera while I'm at a traffic light. Maybe that might help. It does. Okay, I think I'm not for sure. Yes. Okay. Feast of Trumpets, September the 30th. That's when it's coming up. Can you hear me now? I don't know. Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me now. I don't know. Can't hear you, Pastor. Lots of noise. Okay, I know what the problem is. Let me fix that right now. Okay, I think you can hear me now, right? Can you hear me now? I think we should be good now. Good. Laughter, how are you? Long time no see. Haven't seen you in the chat room in so long, in a while. Okay. Feast of Trumpets. Feast of Trumpets is going to be on September the 30th. That's a Monday. And it starts, of course, the feast days. Noise again? Wow. I don't know where the noise is coming from. Can you all still hear? I may need to switch it again. I think I have an idea. Yes, you are now being heard. Well, it sounds like a bunch of, okay. Somebody says it's the wind. Okay, so let me switch this thing to a different side. Okay, hopefully this is better. So I hope that's better. Yeah, it could be the AC. Let me know if this is better. I hope this is better. The problem is that okay, Servant Yah said this is better. Great. So I'm in a different vehicle, so I have to move this thing around till I get to a good point. Okay, so the Feast of Trumpets. Let me go back to what I was saying. The Feast of Trumpets is going to be on September the 30th. That's a Monday. It starts Sunday night, the 29th. Remember, sundown to sundown. So that's when it will be. I did a video on this earlier, talking about why do people have so many different feast day dates, and why is it just everybody so differently? Well, let me just say this. There's always a wrong way and there's always a right way. So before I say who's wrong and who's right, let me just say that I'm glad that people are trying to keep the feast days. I am. I'm really glad that people are trying to keep the feast days and going through the effort to try to figure out the day. I really am. And you have no idea how happy I am just to see people doing that. There was a time that when I was coming up as a young adult, and even before then, feast days was not something that you saw a lot of people outside of the so-called Jewish people do. So the fact that we're doing it is great. Now, why so many different dates? Let me bring that into play. The reason is it's all based upon the interpretation of when the new moon starts. Some people have the new moon starting or the first day of the month based upon the moon. They go by the full moon. And there's a couple problems I have with that. I'll talk about that later. The other group, such as myself, we go by the new moon is when you see the crescent of the moon. You can see the crescent of the moon at the going down of the sun. And when you see that go down, you'll see the new crescent. And of course, the crescent starts the first day of the month. So that's where that comes from. And that's what we base it upon. That crescent will be seen on the 29th at sundown in Israel, in the Middle East. In the Middle East, the crescent will be seen, and it is projected to be there on the 29th, and when the sun goes down. So therefore, that is the first day. When the sun goes down, that would be the first day of the month. And of course, the first day of the 7th month is the Feast of Trumpets. This video, this card cam is not getting into what the Feast of Trumpets is all about. We'll be covering that in another lesson. I just wanted to put the date out there. Number one, some people think that the Babylonians had the correct system or the incorrect system, however they may see it. But let me just say this. The Babylonians worshiped and had a Sabbath on the new moon. And the new moon was the full moon to the Babylonians. And that's what they worship. They worship the moon. How you doing, Kelly? They worship the new moon, and that's when their month started. And that new moon, or that full moon, as you can say, they worship the moon in its fullness. And that's when you can see the full glow of the moon. So when you saw the full glow, the full circle glow, which is 15 days after the crescent starts, the Babylonians worship the moon. So that's what they did. So that system is a Babylonian system. That's where it came from. It's not the new month. It's the middle of the month. But the Babylonians did a lot of things to change times and seasons and what have you. But you can only see a new moon when the crescent first shows, and that can only be seen at sundown. So I did a video on that earlier, so I'm not going to talk much on it right now. But there's a couple other things I want to make mention of, although this title says Feast Day, September the 30th. There's a couple other things I want to make mention of. Number one, I want to thank you all. We did reach 2,500 subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for passing our channel on to other people, sharing the videos. So I want to commend of getting subscribers to tune in and stay long enough to really spread the gospel. And that's always our goal. So it's not about how many subscribers you have, it's about the content of the information that you're putting out. And of course, we do reach um, people in other countries based upon the emails we get. And so all praises to the Most High for that, because He has given us a format that we want to stick with, and that is just teaching the plan to salvation. That's where we're going to stay at. That's how we started. That's where we're going to stick with. Just teaching the plan to salvation. And I think that's important. And the wilderness subject, I want to talk about that wilderness subject we did last Friday night. I have received, and just in the comment section of looking at that lesson, the comment sections of the information and the gratitude for that lesson, and the manner in which, the format in which we brought the lesson. So many of you have complimented that format and the manner in which we did it. We had a reader, and we just brought forth the lesson. We left questions to be at the end, but there were no questions. There was a couple of comments that we recycled through, but there was really no questions. And usually when you give good, tight scriptures and you're able to go through the lesson without much dialogue, what happens is you can get through the lesson and a lot of people's questions will be answered within the lesson plan without getting off track. And that way a person can get the fullness of the lesson. So we're gonna try that again. We're gonna try that again. There are some times that we will have straight dialogue, and there are times that majority of the times, because I do appreciate people providing feedback, I look at your feedback like a survey, and so many of you all just really complimented the way in which the Friday night Bible study went this past week. So I think I want to kind of stay with that, or at least for the initial onset of it. Thank you, my brother. I think that was, I'm trying to look at some of the comments now that I'm at a traffic light. I don't know how to, I have a new phone, so I'm not able to do things quite like I was on the other phone. But I did see some comments, but thank you very much. It came up very quickly, and thank you so much for that. All praises to the Most High. I really mean that. Because let me just say this. When it comes to teaching, I don't know anything. I am only reading. I want you to understand that. I only read. I just know where to go find the material. Okay? Thank you, Kelly. Bless you. That's all I need to, that's all I know how to do, is I know where to go get the material and put it in a way, in a lineup that can best help us understand the scriptures. But it's nothing that you can't say, oh wow, he knows a lot. No, I only know what the scriptures say. The Bible study teachers are concise and direct. Thank you. And that's what we'll continue to do. Is I had a brother, a new gentleman in our congregation, and he came and he says, I was sitting down at the dinner table, Sabbath, where we all break bread, and he comes up and he says, Pastor, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. He says, I want to say something about the lesson on Friday night. I said, okay. He says, The way you did it, the way you all laid it out, there was no debate. You put that to the side. Let me just say what you did. He says, I'm just giving you my opinion. And I said, okay. He says, I have been in church. He named all of the denominations basically that he went to. And he says, the way you put that out with the reader and just laid it out, he says, I never knew anything about this wilderness thing. I've never heard that, but it's so clear and it's so evident, he says, that he's going to protect us during the wilderness if we can get. He just says, I would never have gotten this if I didn't know you guys. And so I didn't take that lightly, uh, but there are times we will have panel people on there, maybe just to interview and talk to and get testimonies, but and just kind of roll it out because I want people to know and learn. That's what's so important is to know and to learn. And one thing about the scriptures, and I tell even teachers that are at Bethel, do not give a verbal answer to any question pertaining to life. Find a scripture to support whatever you're saying or whatever you think is the right way. Find a scripture. Let the scripture do it and not it you. Just tell a person, I don't know. Let's see what the scripture says. I believe if we go over here, it'll give us an answer. And leave it like that. Read it and find two or three places and let it go. Just say, hey, I just read the scriptures. That's the best I can do for you with that answer is read the scriptures. And that's what you have to do when you're dealing with people who have questions and they want answers. I know that question came up whether or not um, uh, who we should select as mates and to marry, and it's I initially said that's a tight question. But when you go back into the scriptures and just read it and read everything, it's clear. It's very clear. So one of the sisters said to me, she says, Pastor, this was this Sabbath, and I was sitting in the car with her and her husband, and she says, you said something, and you always say go back and read it several times. And it says, all of those nations you named, there was a reason why he said don't marry into those nations. And I said, yeah, because they were mightier than they were. And when you look up the context of what they're saying, they're mightier than you. They can have influence over you. Influence. So whomever you marry, make sure that if you're believing in the word of the Most High God of Israel, make sure they do also. And if they got influence over you, meaning that they're mightier than you in thought and persuasion, you might want to reconsider. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to stray from the truth because you're following a mate who may not be equally yoked with you. Scripture says clearly in the book of Amos, how can two walk together except they agree? You must agree. Now, if you're already married and all of a sudden you come into the truth and your spouse isn't, then you need to sit down and have a conversation because Even the apostle said, "This I speak, not the Lord." If that person desires, if you all agree that you all can live together, then let them remain together. Because perhaps, maybe the one who is righteous may be able to be a light to the one that isn't. So I say all that to say, um, pray. The Almighty will give you an answer. He really will. He really gives answers. He really gives solutions to the problem. Um, Rodney Frederick, I attend Houston Rebirth. We kept Feast of Trumpets this last week. I know the dates you pointed out are in line with Hebraic calendar. This is a bit troubling to me. Um, Pastor Johnson, you know when to say, how to say using wisdom. Thank you, Albert. John Anonymous says, Jesus fulfilled the spring feast. Will he fulfill the fall feast starting with Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets? Well, let me just say this. Rosh Hashanah means New Year. That name, I just told our congregation we don't use that name anymore, Rosh Hashanah, because that is a that's a term that was added to it. Some people think that means Feast of Trumpets. Rosh Hashanah means Happy New Year, and the Feast of Trumpets is not New Year. So I just want to lay that on the table first. Um, the scripture says there be the feast that whoever does not come up during the Feast of Tabernacles during the millennium. And so that is saying a handful there. So I would say go back and read Zechariah the 14th chapter and look at that. There's a reason why he says it. The scripture says it that way. Let me see what else. Yeah, Rodney, it can be troubling. And it troubles me too, that we have different dates. And September 30th is Monday. Yes, that's right, R.D. Brown. Thanks, Father Yahweh. Okay. So let me just say this. It is troubling. And I've seen why other groups say that they do it. They say that because the Babylonians, and I think from what I read, okay, this is just what I've read. Babylon had, they worshiped the change of the month, the new month. And when the moon was full, that's what they worshiped, because they worshiped the moon. And so whenever the moon had the full circle, they worshiped it. And some texts will even tell you it's up to 3 days, because the moon stays full that long before it starts to wind down, so to speak. So if those groups are going by that to say it was changed, it was really never changed. That was a Babylonian system. To them, the first of the month was when they worshiped the moon, which was when it was at its full glow. So other than that, I don't know. I really don't know as to why they do what they do. They have to answer that. I just know why we do it, because the crescent is the beginning of the month. And you can only see that at sundown. So therefore, a day begins at sundown. A full moon you could see for 3 days. And so whether the sun is going down or not, the unique fact that you can only see the crescent at the going down of the sun, or as the sun is going down, it lets you know that that is the first day of the month. And when the sun goes down, it's another day. It starts the first day of the month. So I don't think that we will ever solve that issue. I don't think that we will ever agree on it. Ever. because I know that what I believe to be right based upon my understanding of the scriptures is the right thing to do. And of course, they feel the same way too. So they're not going to change. So that's a debate that I'm never going to enter into because they're not. It's um, with another Hebrew because that's what they see, and that's the best way I can put it. I know that when that sun goes down, you can see the crescent. That is the probability that the day or the month is starting. And there's other scriptures that show support as well. And of course, they're going to have some scriptures that they have. I think, I don't know. I've never asked any of them. I just found out uh, uh, about a couple months ago that as to why they were off or why we are off from one from the other. So I don't know what to say. I really don't. Um, but um, a lot of people become experts in astrology. I've always kept it from a child up at the crescent when you can see it. That's the first day of the month. And that's why I do what I do. So that's the best way I can tell you. They have to explain why they do what they do. I am just happy the fact that everybody's trying to figure out a date. What my concern is what does it mean? And I think that's what my goal is to make sure people know what the Feast of Trumpets mean. What does that mean? What does it signify? What's the purpose of it? What's the meaning of the Feast of the Trumpets? And it's not blowing a trumpet. It's bigger than that. And that's what I want to know. What do people know what this is about? So I just wanted to share that with you. Peace, and we'll talk soon. And I may come on tonight. I'm not for sure. Um, I I had an invite, and I don't know if I got an email on Berean TV. I'm going to check later, maybe reach out. And there were some good discussions that we were having over there. In fact, there was a lady, Sister E. She had reached out through a comment on the chat in one of the videos. So we um, said hello to each other and greeted each other through that. And so I'll know later on. If it is, I'll may stream it as well. So peace. We'll talk soon.